Well, hello there. Thanks for joining me today. I am Dr. Jen, and I am so excited for you educating yourself by listening to this podcast. There's been a lot of questions on what's going on Maui. Should I vacation there? Most of all, how can we help? I met my guest today 4 years ago when I became a director on the board at Maui United Way. He's an intellect, a Maui expert, and the Maui United Way's CFO. And I'm joined today by my fellow US veteran and doctor, also not a medical doctor. Neither of us are medical doctors. Welcome, Dr. Luke Bailey. Nice t-shirt, by the way.
Aloha, Jen. It's great to see you. Yeah,
Yeah,
this was a little something I picked up. And listen, out of respect for the show and some of your listeners, I also picked something else up. So give me just a second.
sure. Oh, perfect. It's a red hat with a maple leaf on it, the Canadian
You,
hat. So you have I Heart Awkward Conversations t-shirt. That's my podcast t-shirt and a Canadian hat.
you like that,
Perfect.
eh?
Yes,
I hope I
I
did all
like
that
it,
right.
A.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome to be here with you. And I know I feel like longtime listener was finally time to get off the couch. So thanks for having me, Dr. Jen. It's a pleasure to be
I'm
here.
I am so happy that you're here. This is great. I know you and I talk all the time on Maui United Way stuff, and I've been trying to get you on the show for a while. So I'm really happy. Let's talk about what's going on Maui first, and just it was a different place. Maui was a different place August 7th, and then August 8th happened, devastating fires in both Kula and Lahaina. Uh, what do you see the shifts on Maui afterwards? And there's so many, but where do you see them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for us, we've we've lived on Maui for so long. We've seen it. We know what the generational impacts are. uh, really what we did is I think through the fires, we accelerated the conversation that we were having already. And, it just really amplified the situation, really kind of it brought the problems in the situation to the forefront where these were things that we were already talking about, but they accelerated the narrative, they accelerated the conversation and where we would have liked to have been better prepared, not just for being able to, as horrific as the fires have been, it's also created an opportunity. And I think that if we had been able to come together pre-fire in the way that we're coming together now, we would have been able to subvert that. But it's really also very refreshing to see the community come together the way that they have. And it's absolutely amazing, not just in Maui or Maui County, but just across the state of Hawaii and across the continent of the United States, seeing people that have really just stepped in, really care. They're still committed even after almost a year now. We're coming up on the 1 year anniversary in August, and people are still very engaged. There's a lot of love for Maui and Maui County and the state of Hawaii, and so that's refreshing. It gives us an opportunity to be a microcosm for for future disasters and events, which we wish wouldn't happen. But the reality is that it's not an if situation, it's a win situation, and that, we can learn a lot from what we're doing right now on Maui County, what we've learned from folks at Paradise and from Sandy, and I'm just very optimistic about what the future holds for us.
Let's talk about the inevitabilities of for future disasters. I mean, before we go into that, let's talk about when the fires happened, there were so many people who came to Maui to help, from the Paradise, California fires, and including the United Way folks from there, which was amazing. And there were lots of other folks that came to help. And then also Hurricane Sandy rebuilding New York, right? So it was very very interesting. Um, I'm just trying to figure out. At, Everybody always says, "When are you going to rebuild?" Has Lahaina started rebuilding yet? And I'm thinking, I don't know. I don't know when that's going to rebuild. I don't know any
Right.
idea when they're going to rebuild. It's a hard question.
It is. It's a really hard question. I mean, you're in construction, and so you know what the ramifications are, right? I mean, what are the things that have to happen in order to get something off the ground when there isn't a disaster to recover from? And now here we are in an environment where we're dealing with toxins, we're dealing with trying to figure out what the right appropriate community plan is, getting community folks involved. There's a lot of different community and cultural nuances that are in play here. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and really what I I'm hoping is kind of where I hate to see, the storming, forming, and norming perspective, but is really that right is that we're still in a post-fire recovery environment. And you and I know from our backgrounds, just coming out from a military perspective, we always look at contingency plans and contingency planning efforts. And so I think really we're in that space right now. We're trying to get the right mixture of community leaders to get involved, to understand what that rebuilding should look like and how we can do it better and how we can be a model for across the state of Hawaii differently. So, but I do think that those efforts are a little far off, and I think we have a lot to learn from our partners in Sandy, from Paradise, and from others that will really help to kind of help, I think, shape and maybe help Maui in this case get there just a little bit faster. What are your thoughts? I mean, you see this, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what?
I don't know when Lahaina is going to actually start rebuilding. And I know they've got an expedited building permit aspect, but there's a lot of things that have happened in the meantime. Like the Army Corps of Engineers is still clearing the lots over there, right? And then they're taking the debris to a temporary disposal site in Oluwalu, and then eventually there will be a permanent disposal site in Central Maui, the Central Maui landfill. But here's what I know is that it's not ever going to look the same. Lahaina isn't ever going to be the same. And there's a lot of reasons why, but the main reason is the rising sea levels have impacted how close you can build to the ocean. And it's different now. I mean, there were so many of those stores on Front Street that sat over the water, like Chemo's and the Yacht Club and, almost Cheeseburger in Paradise, but Cheeseburger in Paradise didn't sit over the water. But the setbacks now are such that can't ever be rebuilt. I mean, I don't know if people are saying that out loud, but when it happened, that's instantly where I went and thought, oh my gosh, Front Street isn't ever going to be in the same physical location based on the ocean. And I could be completely wrong, right? And I know that there's some great work being done on what would Front Street look like if when it's rebuilt. But when it actually gets done, I don't know what it's going to look like. That's, I think, the big question. And
Mhm.
along the way, all the codes have changed. The fire department wants proper road widths. Well,
Right.
there were so many little alleyways in Lahaina that can't be there anymore. So now that's going to change lot lines. Army Corps of Engineers, when they scrape those lots, guess what? A lot of those survey pins are gone.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
no,
now it's like
absolutely.
you don't have any benchmarks anymore. Even if, let's say, a Lahaina survivor hired Mike and I to rebuild their house, let's just say the first thing we would do is we would go in and survey where we're going to actually put the house. But
Right.
to do that, the surveyor would need benchmarks. And right now, there aren't any benchmarks left in Lahaina. So I'm not sure how they're going to do this. And I've been discussing with the state about this, going, you guys need to figure this out, because you still have the banyan tree, which I don't know if a surveyor can use as the benchmark, but so many of the other benchmarks are gone. They're either burned up or they're scraped up. So that's a long answer for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Wow.
it's huge. I mean, I think that if they can preserve the historical landmarks to start, and not to take away from what you're talking about, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that but I think if start with the things that we do know that exist, that
Hmm.
are part of Maui and Maui County and the state of Hawaii's history, or the First Kingdom. I know that's not, we're not the first ones to obviously talk about it. You might have talked about it in recent shows, but it's that reality that that's where actually the kingdom of Hawaii really was, and Kamehameha established that and then moved it on to Oahu. So there's all of this historical context, and there's all of these landmarks that I think can be revitalized. And then
Hmm.
if Lahaina could be built in and around that differently, and of course, it's nice to see the county planners and the Maui Fire folks that are actually engaging in a different way now to have those conversations. Because absolutely right, I don't know how you would turn a fire truck in some of those short little alleyways and combat something in a future state where, we've already seen issues with grease trap fires. We've seen issues with LPG lines there, historically within certain, like Cheeseburger in Paradise as an example. So I think it's important that, again, we have an opportunity to improve the posture, right? The standing of that and bring people back to Lahaina. But first and foremost is being able to establish, to your point, what you and something like you and Mike would do is establishing somebody's home and getting that back into their community. And I
Hmm.
think that's a huge first step. But I'm still it's I'm feeling confident or positive. Like I feel optimistic again that we're starting to see that utilities are starting to stand back up in that area, and that's such a great first start. And I really have to give a shout out to Madam Director of Planning, Katie Blystone, Chief Ventura from Maui Fire, and
Of
others
course.
that are working diligently right now to figure out how to reestablish these communities so that they can actually get into those areas and provide service if need be in the form of fire first responders. So it's an interesting conversation, and I think that goes back to those community leaders that live in those areas being a part of that conversation. And but it's a long road ahead. I've some people I talk to, they're a little impartial to this. They think it'll be 10 years before they see two by fours nailed together. And I hope that that's not the case.
Me too. I hope it's faster than that, but some people are saying, well, I'm going to apply for building permits and start building my house back, next year. And I'm thinking, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be as quick as next year, but I don't think it's going to be 10 years from now. But somewhere in there, we're going to have to figure out how to reestablish the beautiful community that was Lahaina. And the thing is, it's just the houses. And I don't want to belittle that, but the people there have been so resilient. It's just incredible to watch and to be a part of that. And we're bringing on Lahaina fire survivors onto our new board in the upcoming year at Maui United Way. And it's just amazing to see how engaged they are, and we have to step up. Not that, but I didn't lose my house, and so that's not my thinking. I want to help, but they were in it, and so they're much more close to the source. I totally get it. Let's shift gears for a second. And because of the fires, because of all of the things happening, not just the fires, there's been other issues that have gone on as well. There has been so many different areas where there's room for leadership in Maui County and beyond. But it just seems that the Maui wildfires created a bigger opportunity for leadership. And let's talk about that for a second. What kind of leadership are we talking about other than the planning director, other than the folks at the county who are doing what they do and the state? Um, what are your thoughts? More leadership in the state and in the county?
Yeah, absolutely. And before we just kind of shift into that, I don't want to lose sight of what's
Yeah,
happened in Kula too, right? You mentioned it
right.
earlier is such a, I mean, impact there. A lot of people have lost their homes. They're being resilient. They lost those utilities as well. And I think that leads very well into your point or your question, which is really in and around the servant leadership opportunity that exists. I think it's easy we get caught in this top down, we vote for somebody, we expect certain things to happen. And and then we see an uprising when there's a catastrophe like the fires that have happened in Kula and Lahaina. And then there's this uprising of community leaders that exist that represent the needs of the many. And they put servant leadership on their shoulders. And you and I come from military backgrounds. It's easy for us, we come from what I think a lot of folks that are potentially outside of the military look at as a top-down organization. Where the reality is that Uncle Sam has taught us how to be servant leaders, right? It's the ability to shoulder, find resources, make it better, say that the sky is blue, that things are going to be okay. I kind of go back to the Kevin Bacon at the end of Animal House, and he's yelling, "All is well." The ability to be that person, right? And so it's really awesome to see all of these leaders, both that are elected, but also folks that are in the community that are very well respected, have been very well respected for years. They're well established generationally. They're from Hawaii. Um, they're they're stepping into this space right now, and I hope that they don't lose that momentum. I hope that they don't feel discouraged along the way, and that they lean on each other. They lean on us. They lean on nonprofit organizations that we partner to find abilities to be incubators, to support what organizations are doing, that we're finding opportunity through those leaders to make things better for our community. And I mean, again, I think as horrific as it is, and I don't want to lose sight of loss of life. I don't want to lose the impact to people's homes, to their communities, to their just ability to just have something to come home to at the end of every day. But there's also a part here too, which is that together we don't lose sight that there's an opportunity. Each one of us becomes a servant leader in that space. And as you know, through many of our conversations, a big proponent of servant leadership and what it means for us in that space to be the ones that are clamoring for the resources, to go out and have the conversation with federal leaders, to meet with other organizations that are potential funders or partners, to meet with community leaders that are within a county or state space, that and giving them insight to what each of us are doing and how we can bring all of this together to make it better. And I really believe that Hawaii is a microcosm for the rest of the country, and that we can use the script that we're writing right now and pass that on, whether it's in response to something that's catastrophic or whether it's something that is just making a community better. I think that there are those that identified early on ways to make our communities better, so that we wouldn't have to endure these kinds of things. And it's important that we're listening to those people, and that we're involving them in decisions as we move forward, and we're bringing them to the forefront, because they're really the voice in the room.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. Well, let's continue on our conversation about Hawaii. And Hawaii's history is so long and brutal. Like, the Hawaiian people are warriors, and I've done lots of podcasts in the library already about the Hawaiian people and how much I respect the events that they endured, battling each other, battling weather, battling food, fighting each other for women. I mean, there's just so many ways that the Hawaiian people have battled. And it just seems that this is one more way that the Hawaiian people emerge resilient, including exclusions, including takeovers, I mean, there's just so many pieces to this history. This is where we have to continue to put the people first, which is exactly what you were saying. To your point, this is exactly what you're saying, is to really lean into putting the people first. And we'll figure out the buildings. The buildings will get built. Front Street, a version of Front Street will get put back, I have no doubt. But I know that there was a bit here that you and I talked about, because you and I both have our doctorates, and so we're intellects, we're research based. This is who
Pretty
we
smart.
are.
I don't want to lie about that. I mean, I'm not as smart as you are, but I want to go
Well,
back to the Warriors fighting over women. I really am
yes.
intrigued about where you pulled that from.
I know you
I
had
mean, I
mentioned.
love awkward conversations, so if you could see my shirt, you would know
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
I know. Well, I like that you had mentioned something before. Tell me again what it was. Disruptive events, or what was it named again?
Yeah, so disruptive innovation modeling or disruptive innovation thinking, right? So it's the idea that in easy layman terms, right? It's Netflix taking over Blockbuster. It's Blockbuster going, there's nothing to see here. VHS and DVDs will be forever. People love coming to the store. That catalog thing isn't going to work out. It didn't work out for Life and Time when they were trying to sell CDs for a penny. And then the next thing, Netflix becomes, the primary streaming service, and there's one Blockbuster left, and it's in Alaska. So while you're in Canada, if you needed to rent a video, you know where you could go you could just go up the coast a little bit. But there's yeah, so I think, within a disruptive innovation space is one of the things we're facing right now, right? And again, I don't have a platform to stand on this one way or the other, but when it comes to the Verbo Airbnb types, what I'm more interested in is, again, back to the servant leadership pieces. People need homes. There are people that need a place to come home to. And it kind of backs up to a thought that I had when I bought my first house, and I was in the military, and I had a leader that I was working for, And as you and I can attest to, we've had, uh, more bad leaders that we can count than we've had good leaders we can count, right? And so, um, you can count the good leaders on one hand kind of a situation. But I remember that the thing that I came home to every day after a frustrating day at work was my ability to stick my hands in my soil, the ability to walk in my front door, the ability to have connection to something that was nobody else's. When I closed the front door, those were my walls, regardless if I owned it or if I was renting it. And so right now, there's an uproar in from people that own property that want to have short-term rental pieces. There's people that really need homes right now. We need to bridge that gap. So obviously I would implore those that own that have the ability to rent as you and Mike have. And I think I commend you for all of your efforts in supporting the community. Um, but to that point is creating space where people have a place to come home to, because that gives them a solid foundation, a start. It's why any of us own a home. And so I was thinking about disruptive innovation modeling as it relates, and I'm in the middle of an EMBA. I'm teaching an EMBA course on this right now, and I wrote the course material about 6 months ago on this disruptive innovation modeling. And the idea behind it, or the thinking I had the last couple of days, was how does that fit in the real estate space? How does that fit into short-term rentals? That if a state were to say, hey, this is outlawed, whether that's indefinitely or if it's for a term length until they solve for X, you're going to flood the market with a bunch of properties for sale. How do people get into those, especially if there's impact to the economy the way there has been to Maui? I mean, 90% of our GDP is based on tourism. So as we diversify the economics of things, then that will create more opportunity for people to stay at home and not have to move and stay connected generationally to their home, which is very important to all of us. So, and again, I guess I would kind of turn it back to you and to colleagues and to your listeners is, what does that disruptive innovation model look like to where you can still have the thing that you want to own, which is, say you were afforded an opportunity through all of your hard work to own a piece of property in Hawaii. How do you help a family from Hawaii get back on their feet and get into that space to where they can have sustainability in their life, and then be able to return that or pay it forward someday? And I think that's, again, goes back to that servant leadership piece. That's not always, when we start thinking from a monetarialistic perspective, that's not always the thing that comes first. The thing that comes first is, well, what's the financial gain? And we're all looking to create a pathway to making it a little bit easier in a future state in life. But regardless, what is the potential disruptive innovation model? Just because short-term rentals don't longer exist potentially in 2025 or 26, I forget what the date is, but what is the alternative? How do we bridge that gap and find a win-win, as Stephen Covey would say from Seven Habits, to get us to a place where we can actually find a solution set that allows the retention of that home in the state of Hawaii, as an example, but creates sustainability for people. I have a friend, as I'm getting on a tangent, am I okay to stay on my soapbox for
You're
a minute?
fine. Keep going. Yeah.
Okay. So I have a friend, it's in San Francisco. So big shout out to Verb House in San Francisco. They started out as trying to be a private funder for is the housing prices in the Bay Area were skyrocketing. People that have been there for generations were being moved out. Huge economic issues there. We're still seeing huge economic fallout in the Bay Area as a result. And Verb House came in, and what they did is they actually had one model and they turned and put it on its ear. They pivoted away from the model that they were originally presenting, and I won't bore you with what that looked like. But they started matching. It was like matchmaker.com. It was like farmers only between like potential homeowners and people that own the homes. And the idea is, and again, I would ask us to check out Verb House, is that they started matchmaking folks that had the ability to buy a home with people that wanted to buy a home instead of a lease to own kind of construct.
Mhm.
And they really put it on its ear, and they've done a really great job. And Marjorie Schultz and her team, I think could fit very well into an idea of how this could work within Maui County to start with. as a
Mhm.
microcosm. And I think that's, in my mind was what I've given thought to over the last couple of days and what that disruptive innovation model looks like, because it gives the ability for people that want to stay home in Hawaii, still gives home ownership and the future of home ownership to people who want to stay there, while still getting those returns that homeowners get in the form of write-offs, as well as the financial security of having somebody in there, what they were seeing in a short-term rental, they're now seeing in somebody who is from Maui, in this case, being able to stay there and rebuild their community. And I think that's a huge win-win solution. And I know that there's probably others out there, but I threw out my email address to you, my edu email address. I know you're going to share that later, but I would welcome folks to jump on that and to be a thought partner in that space and have further conversation. I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting a little too far out in front, Jen. So you'll have
No,
to. You
you're
got good
doing
ideas around this. Give me some other thoughts.
you know what, you're doing great. And fractional home ownership is something that we've talked about on the podcast before. There's several different models. I've actually interviewed a guest, Frank Rode from Ownify, who has a different model than the one that you were mentioning. There's several different versions of it, and none of them are easy, but
No.
they're all a method realizing, there is a problem where we're trying to solve it. And let's keep in mind, a month before the Maui wildfires, Governor Green issued an emergency proclamation because of the housing situation in the state of Hawaii that was a month before the wildfires. So the wildfires just exacerbated it more than, more than it was already going to be an emergency. We're still in that emergency. And then, of course, the wildfires happened and made it even worse. 2,200 homes went away in a matter of, hours. But let's wrap that up with Maui and rebuilding Maui. And Luke, what do you see as success from the Maui wildfires? What does that look like from where you sit?
Well, I think that the big success for me, I talked a little bit about I talked, I guess, probably quite a bit about the community initiatives and the engagement from people. You know, my family always comes from a place of there's always a plate at the table, and whether you can afford it or not, there's always a plate at the table for somebody. That is that is what our culture is about in Hawaii. There's always the ability to provide for others, even if the thing you have is very limited, very little. It's manini. And we are quick to give the shirt off our back and help somebody. That's the state of kukua, the ability to help others. And that's that's not lost. That's always a part of our culture. That's the thing that is makes us so great. I think long before the community came to into this position, it was very much it still had the ability to show or be a partner with other parts of the country on how to communicate with each other. We were seeing issues with the whole protect Mauka or Mauna piece, and we were the ability to talk, even though people were angry and frustrated, they were still able to talk, and they were able to share ideas. They were able to come together peacefully. And even though you talked about us being a warrior nation, um, there's still the ability to come across and take from the same breath. For folks that are maybe new to Hawaii, it's our ability that maybe you kiss somebody on the cheek, which is a part of our culture. You give somebody a hug, you give them a lei. But in Hawaii, we put our heads together and we take from the same breath. And that's that's something that is so special to who we are, being from Hawaii, whether you're native Hawaiian, or if um, you're a Polynesian, or you're a transplant, you're a Malahini, you're a Kama'aina, etc. Is a guest, is that we're founded on respect. We're founded in a place of be able to take care of each other, and all of those things are still present. They're not lost. It's just that we're like anything, like the life cycle of an organization. We've passed the maturity stage and we're coming back around to the infancy side of our organization and our community right now. That looks like the opportunity to rebuild. And as long as we can continue to take from the same breath and realize we all want the same thing, I believe the opportunity is our ability to know that we all love Hawaii, we all love Maui and Maui County, that we all have something that we can give without asking anything in return. And if we can do that, and stay true to the heart of who we are, we're going to get through this, no problem. And we're going to be an example really on a global scale, but let's start with us first in the state of Hawaii, and then we can move outward to the country. And those are really not, those aren't my ideas. Those are just things that I've observed of our home and of the people that I've had an opportunity to be around and grow up around. What I've observed in a post-fire Maui, and I'm as devastating and horrific as it has been for the loss of life, for the loss of community, for the loss of all of those things. We haven't lost our culture, and there's a lot of opportunity for us to rebuild. There's a lot of people that have a lot of love and care to get us there. I'm just a key in the cog, and it's really, I humbly am very, I feel it's been amazing to be a part of it and witness it and just to be in the space with everybody else that's really making significant inroads towards success in our community.
Amazing. Love it.
And
Well,
I realize that there must be a leak in this chair because I just keep getting shorter and shorter.
you do.
For a
You're
guy that's
sinking
like
down
six
as we're
one,
talking. You've gone like
yeah,
this.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back up here.
Oh,
And I
you're
have
so
to,
funny.
and I'm gonna change before we end the show here, I have to go from my Canadian hat to my Hawaii hat. This is my newest iteration from the 808 line. So I'm
There
just
you go.
gonna pop that bad boy on. So
Nice. Very
yeah.
nice. Well,
Yeah.
listener,
You
if
know,
you go
yeah,
ahead, keep
sorry, go
going.
ahead. No, I just one more thing, Jen. I
Sure.
and again, I'd love to get your thoughts on this because I've done so much talking and it's been so nice to share my ideas and thoughts and observations. But I think that there is so much we can take from Irma, Maria, Paradise, Sandy, just to name a few. You know, Pacific Island groups, look what happens in Guam. I mean, what they prepare for in Saipan. You know, there's a lot of opportunities for lessons learned, and it's not just related to community and culture, but also how we preserve, you know, I mean, back to the community as it relates to neighborhoods and homes and things of that nature. Is there's a lot to learn from so many of these different scripts that have already been written. What do you, I mean, I just love to hear your thoughts on what are your takeaways from that, and how do we utilize some of that? I mean, you and Mike are so well invested in all this and have, you know, your hands in a couple different areas. You guys are subject matter experts in this. What does that look like for you?
The biggest thing for us when Kula's already in motion of getting rebuilt, right? 19 houses or 20, I forget, houses were lost, no lost lives in Kula. And I'm thankful for that. And they're well on their way to getting building permits and actually start moving forward with rebuilding the houses that were there. Lahaina is a little different story. And with the volume of structures lost, 2,700 structures and 2,200 of those were homes. And then of course there were 101 folks that perished. And just, there were so many things lost. I look ahead, and that's me, the strategist in me. And Mike's the same way, going, okay, we need to rebuild Lahaina. And we're in a workforce crisis on Maui. And in our recent build, the last 5 years, we advertised literally everywhere we could, everywhere in any media we could. We advertised looking for skilled help. And so when we're talking about rebuilding Lahaina specifically, Mike and I both say the same thing. Who's going to rebuild it? Who's going to rebuild it? The crews here are busy already. Contractors are busy, or they're retiring because they're tired. And that's, Mike and I are flirting with that already, going, do we want to take on more work? Do we want to ramp up and do more things? So, and we import prefab tiny homes to Maui. and into Canada. We're doing a tiny home community in Canada as well. And so we've been in this world a long time, like 3 going on 4 years. So this, when the fires hit, instantly I went, how many homes do I have here on Maui? How many can we deploy? And what can we do? And so when we're talking about the rebuild of Lahaina, I'm not talking necessarily about building the homes. The homes will get built, but who's going to build them may or may not be all local force. There will be some local force in there. Don't get me wrong, because Mike and I love hiring locals. We want to support our community. Sometimes we need skilled people. We bring them in from the mainland, but then they have to have somewhere to stay. So the folks that are going to help rebuild Lahaina, where are they going to stay? Are they going to stay in hotels? Are they going to stay? I don't know. So one of the things that I'm looking at more and more carefully is how can we support the rebuild of Lahaina using our prefab homes to house the workers? Because if I'm housing the workers, I'm rebuilding Lahaina. And so it's sort of a bigger question. It's not just instantly you get your building permit and they go right to a contractor and we hire a surveyor and then we start digging in the ground and we start connecting things and the house goes up. It's way bigger than that because you still have to have people to swing the hammers. And that's where Mike and I go, how can we scale this rebuild when it is time? And I personally, not today. Today is not the day to rebuild. Soon. I don't know when that soon is, but it is soon. But that's kind of where we look at it is go, how can we utilize the skills and the materials that we have and the equipment? You know, we have all the equipment. We just came off of a big build, but we're tired. And so this is where we're trying to figure out, can we do a land lease somewhere nearby on the west side somewhere and try to put up some temporary housing, which the county has now figured out a whole process to do housing, temporary housing. And it's not for the fire survivors. It's for the workers who are going to rebuild the homes of the fire survivors. So that's where I think instantly when I go to this and we get thrown into a big project is, where are the people that are going to support us on this project going to stay? Where are they going to operate from? Where are their walls for that time that we can use their skill to help us recover from this? So that's where we look at it from. So it's really going to be a mix here because I don't think the state of Hawaii has enough skilled labor to rebuild everything, at least not in the time frame that people are wanting it to be. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think that's a huge piece, and I don't think it can be understated at all, right? It's potentially a gap, and I don't know that it's one outside of listening to you talk about it that I've really heard conversation about is
People don't think
where
about
are you
it.
going to put the people that are going to help rebuild all of this?
Right.
And there's first and foremost is getting people from hotels into steady state and getting them into homes paramount. And we know that there's enough vacancies in the potential within the market that can happen. But then there's the next phase of that, to your point, and I think that that's such an important piece. Where does workforce development play in that? I mean, we, I've grown up in, a family of that's, in the trades, and my dad holds GCEC and plumbing for, the state of Hawaii. And we grew up working for my dad, and he's very meticulous. It's if he wanted a 2 foot ditch, it was 2 feet wide and 12 inches deep, and he wanted it for 100 yards, that's what you were going to do. And we were going to have a conversation if there was a section that was less than that or more than that. um but it taught us a lot, and I feel like societally we've moved away from that. I mean, I've worked with a lot of organizations military wide, right, where we used to have a lot more organic labor force within the trades, welders. We had a lot more machinists, we had fabricators, we had civil people, we had all these things. That again, that's an example or microcosm of the rest of the country. Where does workforce development in that play, and what is the potential opportunity that exists, maybe just starting in Maui, to your point that there's more skilled laborers within Maui County, the state of Hawaii, to make this happen?
I have been working with construction industry of Maui that's a part of the Maui Chamber of Commerce for years. In fact, I quit the construction industry of Maui. I didn't quit. My term timed out, and then shifted to the Maui United Way Board, right? So I ended my term there. But with the construction industry of Maui and the chamber, it has been all about advocacy, communication, and education on this exact topic. I mean, top of mind of saying, why can't we take some of our empty commercial spaces around Kahului, for example, and put in an extension of the trade school from University of Hawaii Maui College? Why can't we put in a bigger, better shop program or drywall hanging program or all kinds of different programs where you set young people up for success? The problem is that the cost of living now has gotten so high that even with us, potentially, even with the CIM, Construction Industry of Maui, supporting items like that, then the graduates get out. They are usually hired before they even graduate, right? It's almost like they're sponsored, right? You get them sponsored and they're all the way through and they get a job, but they're still basically living at home because they can't afford to have a home here. And so that brings in a whole nother issue of now the supply is down, the demand has gone up, the prices have gone up. And wages are not tracking, right? The wages for these skilled folks are not tracking. And, I can also tell you one of the crazy things that happened to us during our last big build was that we needed certain trades to help us with certain things. And we would try to hire people on payroll, above board, right? Sign your documents and come in and sign your time cards and the whole nine. And they'd say, why would I do that? I can go down to McKenna to Celebrity X's house and I can make their bathroom or their pool or their whatever, and they'll pay me $500 cash and a case of beer every day. And I know people don't want to hear that, but that's what I'm up against. And I have to be insured and I have to have people on payroll. And because if they get hurt, then guess what? Mike and I pay personally. That's how that works, is with OSHA. Personally, the owners pay personally. So it's just a big spiral that seems to be getting worse because of inflation. Interest rates have gone up. Now that the supply of the housing that we did have, even though we were already in a housing emergency with the wildfires and the loss of those houses, it's gone even worse. So how does workforce development work for Maui? I don't know. It just got about 10 times more complicated when we were trying to figure out in a construction industry Maui, we were trying to figure out some different solutions that were going to work in the, central Maui. And now that's just sort of gone out the door. Like, I don't know what the answer is now, but it's a huge piece of it because, again, if we can't use local skill and we don't have enough local skill to help rebuild these places, then we have to bring them in from the mainland and they've got to have somewhere to stay. So I really hope that this is not the end of the conversation by any means. It's just starting, and it just, again, did some disruption already. Like, it just took a huge left turn that nobody even saw it was going to take. I don't know if that problem is going to be solved anytime soon either.
Yeah. No, I appreciate all that, Jen. I mean, it's very insightful. And I think we look at, again, I think it just accelerated the narrative, right? Accelerated or amplified the thing that was happening. This is a huge, I mean, there's a huge issue within, North America right now within trades or skilled labor, right? And so, and again, I think that there's the conversation that could be had for a later episode on, why did we give up on, celebrating the ditch digger, right? Is what was wrong with that? If that brought your ability to bring home income, to buy a home, to take care of family, to do those things, and so, I authored something in August of last year where I was looking at, this was late August, about 4 buckets of diversity across Maui, and there were, or Maui County, and it was technology, renewable energies, which I think go hand in hand, agriculture, which included ranching, and then obviously hospitality and tourism. And I think if we can get into the workforce development space into each of those and create opportunity to celebrate people that know how to weld, to swing a hammer, to dig a ditch, to really, in a good way, capitalize on the ability to grow that infrastructure that you're talking about, that trade laborers piece. Um, I think it leads to housing affordability. It leads to economic stewardship, economic diversification. And again, we can script this right now, but we've got to. Yes, it's the beginning of the conversation, and there's some really great groups out there right now that are leading at the forefront of that. And but on Maui and Maui County and across the country, but we really need to continue to accelerate that conversation and get people that maybe don't want to go off to a 4-year college, maybe don't want to go off to a military program, but we can actually have an opportunity for trade labor training and really accelerate that. And there's no better time than right now. So really appreciate
Absolutely.
that.
No, absolutely. Well, Luke, if people want to get a hold of you, do you want to give them their email? You want me to spell it out?
Yeah, if you want to pass off my email address, then they
Yeah.
want to connect via email, that's great.
Perfect. So, if you want to get a hold of Dr. Luke Bailey, lbailey at cityu.edu, LBAILEY at city, and then the letter u.edu. I'll put this on the website. So go to mylifeasalandlord.com if you missed it. And if you're interested in how to help people on Maui, go to mauiunitedway.org. You can see all the great things that Luke and I are working on behind the scenes at Maui United Way. And hey, first time podcaster, not bad.
Well, I really enjoyed it. There's no other place I would have rather been for my first
Aw.
podcast. This has been awesome. So thank you very much for having me. It's been a long time coming. And Jen, before we hop off, I just want to give a big shout out to all the folks involved and all the community support across Maui, Maui County, the NGOs, the nonprofits, the government agencies. At the heart of it, it's people, and it's been we're just really, and I'm proud of our Maui United Way team, and really thank you so much for having me on the show. I've really enjoyed it, and I look forward to hopefully being invited back someday. So,
Absolutely. You betcha. Thanks for
and
being here.
thanks for the cool swag. If you guys haven't gotten this, you really need to get "I Love Awkward Conversations" t-shirts. I hope you
Yeah,
have that somewhere because these are sweet.
I do. They're actually available on my website, mylifeasalandlord.com. I was told by my podcast coach that there's been such a demand for the merch, quote
Yeah,
unquote merch, that she's figuring out a way that people can order t-shirts off of the
excellent.
website. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So there
I'm
you
a
go.
t-shirt connoisseur, and these fit just really nice and comfy. So
Perfect.
this is great. Thank you.
Perfect. Love the hat. Love your Canadian hat. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah,
That was
well, I
fun.
was red for Lahaina Strong, and got to throw a Canadian shout out. And thanks for letting me sport a couple of different bills tonight with the Canada and the Hawaii. So thanks for bridging that gap too.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks for being here. Just wait a second.
Thanks. Aloha, Jen.
Okay,
Thank
wait.
you.